So, Bob, we've seen the video of Disneyland Shanghai opening. We've seen that it's operating at less than 30% capacity, but we've also seen that there's demand from your fans. Can you give us a sense of what bookings are looking like through the rest of the quarter and what you're expecting in terms of attendance at this park looking into next quarter?
Well, Shanghai is what we call a short book market, where typically most of the tickets for that week are sold within the week. As you know, as you mentioned, significantly constraining the amount of tickets that we'll sell, and we're pretty much booked out for the rest of the week. We have a few tickets available on certain days, but essentially everything's gone. This is really indicative, I think, of the love that consumers have for our brand across the world. I get countless number of emails and correspondence from guests saying how much they can't wait for us to open up, because to them, it represents some semblance of normal, maybe the new norm, but it's some semblance of normal. And we certainly want to open up as soon as we can across the world, but we're going to do so in a responsible way. So we're excited for our guests. We're excited for our cast. We want to get our cast back to work as soon as possible. So this is a first step. It's a baby step, and we're moving slowly, but we're very encouraged by what we see in Shanghai.
Now, in terms of what that new normal looks like, though, you're now operating at well less than 30% of former capacity. How long is that sustainable just from a profitability standpoint?
Well, I look at this as a stair step. We're going to be very conservative. We're going to be very prudent. We're going to be very disciplined about how we open up. And then we're going to ramp up and increase. Right now, the government has a 30% cap of our typical capacity in terms of the number of guests that we can put into Shanghai Disney. And so the plan is essentially to go up 5,000 a week, just until we get to the point that we know that we can operate under our guidelines in a way that's very responsible. And then when the government loosens up those constraints and restrictions, then we'll walk that ramp again, but slow and steady for us.
But do you think reaching 100% capacity is even possible with social distancing and the idea of trying to keep 6 feet between people in the park?
Well, we're going to see how it goes. Right now, a lot of that depends, Julia, on the guest. And our guests have been extraordinarily diligent in terms of maintaining that social distancing so far. So a lot of it's got to do with guest behavior as much as it's got to do with Disney operations. So if the guest continues to behave in the way that they have, I think we might be able to approach that.
So what does that mean for reopening the parks in Tokyo and Hong Kong? Do you expect guests to behave in the same way there?
I think so. I think, everybody across the world knows that this is a relatively important condition upon which we can continue to operate the parks. They all want to come back to the parks, and everybody knows that COVID-19 is a serious matter. Therefore, we're all playing a part of this ecosystem of safety, if you will. And we're going to do our part, and we need our guests to do their part too.
So can you give us any sense of a timeline for even partially reopening the parks in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and then, of course, the parks here in the U.S.? I know you are opening the mall outside the park in Orlando, but does that mean that we will see Disney World open in July?
Well, we're not going to comment on any specific date. To a certain extent and a large extent, it's going to depend upon, guidance we get from the federal government, the state government, the local government, healthcare experts, as well as, the immediate hospitals that are in the area of where we operate and what their capacities are. So we're not going to comment on any specific timing, but I think it is a good sign that Disney Springs is going to open up in Orlando. We stuck our toe in the water, if you will, in Shanghai with Disney Town, and we operated that for about a month, and everything went extremely well. Once again, the guests really cooperated. Our operations people were phenomenal, and we held to the standards that we set up. And hopefully we'll see that at Disney Springs as well. And this will be the beginning of a great new rebirth of Disney parks.
But what's going to be the hardest part for you to reopen the parks, especially the parks here in the U.S. that are such a meaningful piece of your revenue? Is it about getting the right cleaning processes in place? Is it about training your visitors to get used to waiting in lines in a different way and not getting too close to each other? What's going to be the key thing that needs to be figured out for you to get those parks really up and operational again?
Well, along with social distancing, one of the things that we're likely going to require is masks for both the cast and the guest. And I think the masks for the guest will be something that culturally is different. In Asia, as you know, it's fairly commonplace, even before COVID, for folks to walk around in public with masks on. That is not the case in the US. So that will be something that will be a little trying, I think, for some of the guests, particularly in the hot, humid, summers that we tend to have.